Greetings, everyone. Keith here, hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Coming at you tonight to talk to you about Frank. Frank. If you watched here not too long ago, I did a video review on tax per Q, and this was in relation to the prepaid postage indicia videos I've done in the past, and some confusion there as to where it comes from. And it's specifically called a franking right. And so tonight we're going to go over some etymology, one of my favorite things. But we're going to start out with a Wikipedia site rather than etymology, based on a term called lingua franca. So we're going to take a look at that, and the link is down there for anybody who wants to join the panel. We would certainly appreciate some company, so feel free to click on that, and let's look at this. Where's it at? Lingua franca. Let me blow this up a little bit more. There we go. Double check here. Let's do this. All right. So what we have, this is Wikipedia. And it says, a lingua franca, Frankish tongue. For plural, see usage notes 1 down below. As known, and this is pretty lengthy. I'm not going to go through and read the whole thing, but there are some certain points that I want to make that are touted right in the beginning. So we're going to read the first part of it, and then all you guys got to do is just look this up and read the rest of this to get a better idea of what's going on with all these different languages. Okay, and even there they put sign languages. So down here, see also Rosetta Stone, Global Language System, International Auxiliary Language, Coin Language. Remember I talked to you about coining your words or pursing your lips. Language contact, list of languages by number of native speakers, list of languages by total number of speakers, The whole reference guide. So let's take a look. It says it's also known as a bridge language. A bridge language. Common language. Trade language. Auxiliary language. Vehicular language. Vehicular language. I want to take a moment, folks, to kind of help you comprehend what's going on here. It is in the language. The language itself is the vehicle. And as long as you keep using it in the way that drives their commerce, you are driving a vehicle. And it is in commerce, so you are a commercial vehicle driver. That's as simple as it gets. I keep trying to explain to you, if you don't understand the language, then you have no concept of what's going on here. That's literally what's being used against you. This is the, quote, Miranda rights. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have no equity because you're not coming with equity. When you learn how to come with equity with the language, you are able to avoid those certain terms because you have a certain knowledge of their intended uses. So, vehicular language or linked language is language systematically used to make communication possible between groups of people who do not share a native language or dialect, particularly when it is a third language that is distinct from both of the speaker's native languages. Lingua francas have developed around the world throughout human history, sometimes for commercial reasons, so-called trade languages facilitated trade, but also for cultural, religious, diplomatic, and administrative convenience. Do you see the different jurisdictions? Trade, culture, religious, diplomatics, administrative. Those are all different jurisdictions defined by different languages used for those specific purposes. And as a means of exchanging information between scientists and other scholars of different nationalities. The term is taken from the medieval Mediterranean lingua franca, a Romance-based pidgin language. Pidgin language. Pidgin language is a grammatically simplified means of communication that develops between two or more groups of people that do not have a language in common. And typically, its vocabulary and grammar are limited and often drawn from several languages. So you understand what English is now? English is a pidgin language, and you're claiming a nationality of the United States, a corporation. So you're using corporate and then at state level administrative. It's a commingling of two different jurisdictions just by that alone. But then you profess to be a Christian, so you're using religious language, and then you think you're capable of performing business, so you're using trade language. You don't know how to separate them. So the pidgin language, used especially by traders in the Mediterranean basin from the 11th to the 19th centuries. What happened between the 11th and 19th centuries? Was that all the Sedeke Vi and what we had, the raid upon the Catholic society, trying to wipe out Catholics? We had the forefathers coming to America and creating a new country, not based on religion, but based on a corporate entity. A world language, a language spoken internationally by many people, is a language that may function as a global lingua franca. So we see that the courts in most of the world is trying to make English language, this lingua franca, as a global system. Characteristics. Any language regularly used for communication between people who do not share a native language is a lingua franca. And like I'm explaining here, English itself is a lingua franca as we know it today. It's based on Latin, French, Greek, Italian, all kinds of language, Proto-Indo-European. When we look through the etymologies, we see how all the different terms in the English language come from multiple roots. This is what it makes so hard for people to understand etymology, the multiple roots. They don't want to separate out the roots, but that's the inherent problem. The laziness of not knowing what the origin of the words are so you can figure out the actual intent, original intent, and see how they've been morphemed and converted through that language. Lingua franca is a functional term, independent of any linguistic history or language structure. Independent of any linguistic history or language structure. Now, I briefly mentioned this one time in regards to Ebonics. It's a signification. Language is a signifying thing. That's all it is a signifying thing. So when we signify things, we can use other things that already signify something and translate them or transliterate them or whatever, convert them for our own use as a signification. Pidgins are therefore lingua francas. Creoles and arguably mixed languages may similarly be used for communication between language groups. But lingua franca is equally applicable to a non-Creole language native to one nation, often a colonial power, learned as a second language, and used for communication between diverse language communities in a colony or former colony. So we're still talking about the origins of the country or the nation as it relates to their interactions with the native tribes and having to learn how to speak either like them or teach them how to speak like the colonists. Lingua francas are often pre-existing languages with native speakers. Are often pre-existing languages with native speakers. But they can also be Pidgin or Creole languages developed for that specific region or context. This is where we see the differences in the languages of the natives on this continent that spoke slightly different dialects, but yet were still able to communicate in a basic enough sense that the concept or intent was understood. Pidgin languages are rapidly developed. Pidgin language are rapidly developed and simplified combinations of two or more established languages, while Creoles are generally viewed as pidgins that have evolved into fully complex languages in the course of adaptation by subsequent generations. So here now we see that the English language isn't just a pidgin language, but it's a deeper language. Creole, as I said, it's borrowing, adopting the terms and signifying intents of words, terms, and conditions from multiple other languages. Good evening, Creole. Welcome. There's Peniel. Welcome. What's going on, brother?
No, I'm just hanging. I'm enjoying the knowledge as usual. And yeah, I wasn't familiar with this terminology.
Yeah, and that's the importance of doing your research and going back to the origins, so you know how things are developed and constructed. If you don't know that, you don't know that it's founded on a faulty foundation or not. That's why I urge people to learn this stuff and learn your coat of arms, your family crest, the heraldry, how you're supposed to express yourself in pictures as it relates to those kind of things, as well as how you go back and learn your own origins and talents to express yourself in the words. Just like coining your own words, when it comes to the franking thing about making your own homemade stamps, that's part of what we're talking about, is learning how to express yourself in a way that both parties can comprehend, and it's called a pidgin language. And like I said, with English, it's actually a full-fledged Creole, which is multiple sources. And that's the same concept in your heraldry and coats of arms and stuff, where you have a family crest that might have an expression of talents of 5 different family members, whereas your coat of arms is supposed to express your talents. So you would have a coat of arms expressing your talents, and then maybe a family crest showing the talent of your father, your great or your grandfather, your great grandfather, your great great grandfather, so on. So you have multiple expressions with each of them supporting themselves in different languages. This is the importance to realize that written and spoken languages aren't the only languages. You have, like it said in there, American Sign Language, all kinds of languages. And then, of course, you have the different uses, like it showed there, the administrative, the corporate, the trade, the religious, and all that. So you have to have the ability, your plenary powers to look in various different subjective viewpoints as to how it relates to what you're using now. This is why I say, if you're going to sit there and use a term like on Jack's panel last night, to settle without settling, and not know how those words are used, and then try to placate that you can somehow settle without settling, this is trying to placate that you can do something without doing it. The whole issue I've had with Jack all along, and he's still doing it. It's in the language. I don't have a problem with Jack. What I have a problem with is the language that you use, and it's just like any other time you've heard somebody say that, you are manifesting yourself in your language. If you go around in life and you're sorrowful and all pity poo, you're going to have a pitiful life. And if you go around babbling, you're going to have a confusing life. And that's where we see Jack. He thinks he's got it all put together. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect. Yeah, he woke up to certain things that, yeah, we shouldn't be having certain secrets. There shouldn't be certain wars. There are certain things that are certainly shouldn't be doing. But yet, here we are, we're still doing them. And people want to sit there and point fingers and blame and never criticize themselves and learn. And that's the saddest thing. People walking out of these supposed public education systems and think they know enough for the rest of their life and never pick up another book or do any more learning. It's sad, really sad. So
To say the
I want to
least,
thank,
right?
yeah. So I thank you for being here. Let's continue on with this, because
Yeah,
then it says,
I would
oops,
restream this, but I don't think I think it's when the free version, right? The free version doesn't let you restream, but I've had people who they said they had the paid version and it also wouldn't let me restream. So it's weird. Some StreamYard's strange, but anyway, go ahead. More important
well,
knowledge.
you can always do it on Facebook. You can always pull something up on Facebook and do a live on Facebook too. You can use your other platforms to do this stuff, guys. That's why I say, get multiple platforms. That way, when they try to shut you down on one, you can still
Right.
go full blown on the others.
Good point.
Pre-existing lingua francas such as French, which is where Franca comes from. It's a French term, Franks, the Franks. We're going to see this here in the next couple terms we look up under etymology. And it says, are used to facilitate intercommunication in large-scale trade or political matters. While pidgins and creoles often arise out of colonial situations and a specific need for communication between colonists and indigenous people. And so this is my reference to the Ebonics when they started talking about Ebonics in the late 70s. They recognized there is a different signification in the language used by the melanated peoples, and they called it Ebonics. They said they learned differently through the symbolic languages they use. And that's absolutely correct. They have a different linguist. Pre-existing lingua francas are generally widespread, highly developed languages and with many native speakers. Conversely, pidgin languages are very simplified means of communication, containing loose structuring, few grammatical rules, and possessing few or native speakers. So, what I want to point out here, we've got the English language and the Latin language. And if you guys don't understand or realize it, the English language started out in all lowercase. That was the original style. And obversely, Latin started out as all uppercase. Now, since its origin, its original English language in all uppercase, it's been converted, it's been morphined, and now they use lowercase. That shows the merger between English and language, or English and Latin, to show it as a type of formation into a pidgin language, or further yet, Creole language. And that's what the English language is. It's supposedly a basic quantum grammar that everybody should be able to understand. But what happens is everybody believes they understand it, and they're using multiple terms that mean the same thing or slightly different things. And that's the problem. Everybody uses a dictionary, not one ever references a thesaurus. Thesaurus actually means treasury. And your treasury is the meanings, the intents. That's why I say coin your words or purse your lips. You pull your words out of the treasury, which is the meanings, the intents. You have to make sure that the words you use are coming from the proper intent. So the next one, we're going to take, well, let me finish up here real quick. There's just one sentence left that I want to finish up. And that is, Creole languages are more developed than their ancestral pidgins, utilizing more complex structure, grammar, and vocabulary. So again, now we see that the English language, with all of its Latin prefixes and suffixes and its various different structures that are adopted from multiple different languages, and then use those multiple different prefixes and suffixes to change their intents, as well as having substantial communities of native speakers. So it's a language that they're, like I said, they're pushing today as a universal language around the globe. The next one is franc itself. Now, I've mentioned this. This is the franking right or franking privilege that I researched when I started doing the, quote, homemade stamps, which are actually more precisely defined as homemade or prepaid postage indicia. Just like you have the right to create your own coat of arms and do your heraldry, you have the right to express your own judicial elements. And this is what the stamp is. The stamp is the judicial element. It's the seal. Remember, we spoke about the oath, the original promise sealed with the original oath. So you have the original promise, the original seal, and the original oath. This is your right of franking. This is the right to be first, free, and not servile. So as we see, frank as an adjective says free, liberal, generous, and that's from circa 1300. 1540s, outspoken, from Old French franc, free, not servile, without hindrance, exempt from, sincere, genuine, open, gracious, generous, worthy, noble, illustrious. 12th century. From medieval Latin francus, free, at liberty, meaning off duty, exempt from service, off duty, as a noun, a free man, a frank, your right to be free. It's your franking right. It's your right to express yourself. Frank, literally free. The freedom may be in regard to one's own opinions, which is the same as openness, or in regard to things belonging to others, where the freedom may go so far as to be unpleasant, or it may disregard conventional ideas as to reticence. Hence, while openness is consistent with timidity, frankness implies some degree of
We seem to be experiencing some technical difficulties here, folks. Please be tuned. Stay tuned, is what I meant to say. Be patient. So this one time at law school, I got disbarred. So what does 17 USC 1819 actually mean? Okay, Wiz said, lost internet, be right back, give me a few. All right, folks, we could do this. We could do this. See, I'd present my screen, but I'm not capable of doing that. So. But shout out to Joseph K., also known as Truther Cop's doppelganger. Lagoon creature past the bar. Indeed, sir. If she can do it, anyone can, right? (18 USC 1719). So 18 USC 1719 is about ranking privilege. Whoever makes use of any official envelope, label, or endorsement authorized by law to avoid the payment of postage or registry fee on his private letter package or other matter in the mail shall be fined under this title, according to 18 USC 1719. Huh. Violators of this law are subject to fines under this title. Not fines. No. They would never do that. All right, I'm gonna get some water. He's probably gonna be here any second. All right, I got some water. 18 USC 1721. Prohibition against the unlawful sale of or pledge of stamps. Well, you know who would know a lot about this is Mr. Wyzard, so he'll be here in a minute. But I think this is a sufficient picture to take his place in the meantime. I couldn't possibly take his place. Don't have the knowledge or the wherewithal in many ways. So much love and respect to Mr. Wyzard. He'll be back any second. He dropped a comment in the back chat, so no worries. The strip bar, you say, Travis, huh? The strip bar.
Okay. Everybody hear me? Loud and clear? Good deal. Thanks for holding it down, Neil. So let's get back to our screen share. My apologies for that, folks. And despite that, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button for me. Get the numbers up, help people learn, because that's all we're doing here is trying to help people learn. And it's imperative that you learn the origins of what you're speaking. So again, we see it means free, captive, or slave. Actually, let me double check here. Where did I get dropped off, guys? Somebody tell me what was the last thing you actually heard. In 30 minutes, I'll be reviewing AM jurors fraudulent conveyance and transfers. Awesome, awesome. Let me see. Greetings, El Perro and everyone. Greetings. Yes, greetings, Dark Matter, Tribe, Kara, Aaron, Jen, High Priestess, Patrick, everybody joining. I appreciate all your support. Ona Faye. Paul Jr. showed up. How about that, folks? How about that? We got Unslaved Truth, Brielle, Disciple, the Messiah, Roz Blackwood. Greetings, everybody. And of course, we got Sean up here. Galleon was in here earlier, but I don't know where he's at now. But 18 USC 1719, we'll go ahead and take a look at that when we're done here. But hopefully, as we see here, a generalization, let me go back and just start back at the beginning of this. A generalization of the tribal name. The connection is that Franks, as the conquering class alone, had the status of free men in a world that only knew only free, captive, or slave. For the sense connection of being one of the nation and free, compare Latin liber, liber as in Liber code. They spell it differently, but it's liber, and they sound it differently, but it's library. Same thing. That's why your library information is free. From the same root as German elite, nation, people. See liberal, adjective of Slavic free words, which are cognates of the first element in English, sibling, brother or sister. For the latter sense development, compare ingenuity. And we got to remember, folks, when we're talking about languages, we're talking about your ability to imagine things and then express it in a verbal form so that then you can create and manifest the physical form. Frank as a noun, short for Frankfurter, in other words, a hot dog. American English, Franks and Beans, attached by 1953. Frank as a noun, capital F, Frank as a noun, one of the Germanic tribal peoples situated on the lower Rhine from 3rd century that conquered Romano-Celtic northern Gaul circa 500 CE. From their territory and partly from their language grew modern France and French. Old English, Franc, Franca, freeman, noble, Frank, Frenchman. From medieval Latin, Francus, a late Latin borrowing of Frankish, Frank, the people's self-designation. And that's right in line with the alone had status of freemen. They determined they themselves, by their own designation, were the only free men around, and that everybody else must be a captive or a slave. Okay? The origin of the ethnic name is uncertain. It traditionally is said to be from the Old Germanic word franken, which means javelin or lance, their preferred weapon. But the reverse may be the case. Compare also Saxon, traditionally from root of Old English seas, meaning knife. The adjectival sense of free, at liberty, probably developed from the tribal name, not the other way around. It was noted by 1680s that in the Levant, this was the name given to anyone of the Western nationality. anyone of a Western nationality. Frank, as a verb, pay attention. To free a letter for carriage or an article for publication, to send by public conveyance free of expense. From 1708. From shortened form of French, affranchir, from a to, plus franchir, to free, which is where we get franchise. A British parliamentary privilege from 1660 to 1840. In U.S. Congress, technically abolished 1873, but not formally. Don't you get it? The words, terms, and conditions used in these documents and the information put before you have specific meanings. So when they say technically abolished 1873, it's to say not formally abolished, because it still has its original intent. Related, franked, franking. As a noun, signature of one entitled to send letters for free. From 1713. Franchise, late 14th century, to make free. From Old French franchise, past participle stem of franchir, to free. From frank, free. See frank as an adjective, which is what we just looked up above. That was the first one. Franchising is from 1570s. The commercial licensing sense is from 1966. From 1966. That's the year I was born, and that's the implication of the enumeration at birth. The enumeration at birth is the franchising of a legal entity, of the corporate entity of the United States by one of its subsidiaries, one of the states. So we have to think about this stuff and realize we are the free men. We were born into sin, but that doesn't mean we were born captives or slaves. We were born free, and we were born free into sin so that we could observe it, go through the tests of life, and come out clean. No one's perfect, though, so we get a little dusty along the way. This is why we repent and ask for forgiveness. The next one, Frankentour, how I have no idea. It's obviously French. Frank Toureur. I'll do the best I can. Sharpshooter of the irregular infantry. 1808 French, literally free shooter. From Frank, free, and Toureur, shooter. To draw. To draw. Did someone draw a name by putting several strokes on a piece of paper and draw out a name? This is what it's about, folks. You have to go back to the origins. It's very implicating of what's going on if you know what you're looking at. They always talk about adhesion contracts and implied contracts, and that's what these words, terms, and conditions truly are, is implied contracts right before your eyes. So you got anything? Let's look at that 18 U.S.C. 1719 real quick, and then if you've got anything else, Peniel, let me know. Yeah, see, they call this a franking privilege. Okay, let's take a look. 18 U.S.C. 1719, and they call it a franking privilege, and that's why it's going to say under this title, whoever makes use of any official envelope, label, or endorsement authorized by law to avoid the payment of postage or registry fee on his private letter, packet, package, or other matter in mail shall be fined under this title. Okay. So there's some distinct differences. First of all, whoever is a specific term in the U.S. Code, and that relates to a person, financial institution, corporate entity, the thing that was drawn when you were born on a piece of paper. Okay. It makes use of any official envelope, label, or endorsement. Remember, we talked about endorsement. Now you see them using endorsement, but they don't define endorsement. They define endorsement as an amendment to an insurance policy, but the endorsement is actually a signature. See, the endorsement is the signature, whereas an endorsement is where you give credit. So what happens is in the endorsement, you give an endorsement. So it's both an endorsement and an endorsement by consideration of the presumption implied. And it says authorized by law. So the authorization by law is under the laws of the United States. So you have to be qualified by the laws of the United States to first be organized to be able to use those instruments and send them in the mails as pursuant to the law, which is public. Okay? So you have to be an officer. You have to be a resident. And they're saying as a resident, you are an officer of that administrative setup, and therefore you have no privilege to be franking. You are subject to the costs and expenditures of the internal operations. And that's because you're sending other matter in the mail, and they're known as private letters and not articles. Okay, there's a distinct difference between a manifold dispatch article, which I've showed you, which is a trifold piece of cardboard, not paper. It's a hard, like a cardboard. What do they call them? Postcards. You send a postcard in the mail. You put a stamp on it. That postcard is not regular paper. It's actually thick. So if you use compound article dispatch documentation like that, a good thick bonded paper that's much more like cardboard, and you fold it, trifold, that's called manifold. And then you don't enter it into the mails, you dispatch it through the mails. And the dispatch is indicating that there is no patch on it that belongs to them. It's not one of their patches. It's not a merit badge or a merit patch for them. So it says to avoid the payment of postage or registry fee on his private letter, package, or other matter in the mail. And that's what I'm talking about. This stuff doesn't go in the mail. It's not being added to the general ledger. It's passing through the mail. This is known as a pass-through. And again, this is Article 1 of, the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union. Pull that up. Preamble. With a view to developing communications between peoples by the efficient operation of the postal services and to contributing to the attainment of the noble aims. Remember, it's noble. Frank means noble. Aims of the international collaboration in the cultural, social, and economic fields. Remember all those different grammar languages? The plenipotentiaries, this is your plenary powers to be able to do all of your own banking, accounting, tax work, all of it. You should be able to be self-confident to do all of it yourself and make your own discernment instead of taking upon the convenience and comfort of letting everybody else in society claim they're professionals to let them do it for you. This is just stupidity. Of the governments of the contracting countries have, subject to ratification, acceptance, or approval, adopted this Constitution. Again, it's an adoption. I cannot stress that enough. Article 1. The countries adopting this Constitution shall form under the intergovernmental organization entitled the Universal Postal Union, a single postal territory for the reciprocal exchange of postal items, not letters. Postal items would be letters and articles and shipping packages, parcels, and otherwise. So you have to define what postal item it is. But then it says freedom of transit shall be guaranteed throughout the entire territory of the Union, subject to the conditions specified in the acts of the Union and any additional protocols thereto, herein after collectively acts of the Union. So it's merely an adoption and recognition of your right to be frank. So let's start being frank, people. Don't you get it? What do you got, Peniel? You still with us? Peniel. All right. Well, all right. I guess he's not with us, so we will end it for tonight. I do appreciate everybody's support. Again, kindly thank you. Please feel free to hit that PayPal link down below and share some love if you can. And know that I love you. I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. So may God bless you and have a good night. We'll see you next time.